I want to talk about one of the most painful prisons a human being can enter. The prison with no walls, no bars, no locked doors. And yet, millions of people spend years trapped inside it. It is the prison of what if. After a loss, the mind becomes a courtroom. Every memory becomes evidence. Every conversation becomes testimony. Every decision is put on trial. A grieving heart keeps asking, what if I had called sooner? What if I had noticed? What if I had done something differently? The mind searches desperately for the one thought that could change the past. But no matter how hard it searches, it never finds answer because the answer does not exist. Today, I want to share a story that illustrates this prison. Not because it is unusual, but because it is painfully human. There was a woman who spent most of her life inside the prison of what if. When she was young, she fell in love with a man everyone admired. He was handsome, respected, and admired by everyone around him. She wanted him to choose her. Eventually, they married. They had a son. For a brief moment, she believed she had everything she had dreamed of. But life did not unfold the way she imagined. After returning from military service, her husband struggled deeply with the trauma of war. The man who came home was carrying invisible wounds, nightmares, depression, anger, pain, memories. He could not escape. The battlefield had ended, but inside him, the war continued. Their marriage slowly became a battlefield of its own. Arguments became common. Both were suffering. Both felt abandoned. Both felt alone. Then one day, during a terrible fight, her husband said something she never expected to hear. I should just kill myself. She was exhausted, angry, wounded. And without thinking, she replied, then do it. She grabbed her child and walked out the door. A few moments later, she heard a gunshot. Fear froze her. She could not make herself go back. So she ran. From that moment, without realizing it, another life began. Not the life she would live on the outside. The life she would live inside her mind. For the rest of life, she returned to that moment again and again. What if I had stayed? What if I had not said those words? What if I had turned around? What if I had called for help? What if I had never left. The years passed, but she never escaped that moment. She raised her son while carrying unbearable guilt. Sometimes she drank to numb. Sometimes she fought it. Sometimes she collapsed beneath it. She was no longer living only with grief, but living with an endless trial. She was the prosecutor, the defendant, the judge, and every day she sentenced herself again. Years passed. Her son grew up in instability, sometimes with relatives, sometimes in foster care, sometimes with her, sometimes without her when she wasn't. As she watched him struggle, a second prison appeared. What if I had been a better mother? What if I had stopped drinking sooner? What if I had let his grandparents raise him? The mind never stops at one what if. It always creates another and another. Because the mind is not actually searching for answers. It is searching for a way to change reality. That's why what if it's such a cruel prison? The door is locked from the inside. Then one day, another phone call came. A stranger's voice. A woman she had never met. The voice said, "I'm your son's wife." There was a long silence. Then came word no parent ever wants to hear. Your son passed away. Not yesterday, not last week, a month ago. The wife had only recently found a way to contact her. And in a single moment, every what if she had ever carried came rushing back. Not one question, not 10 questions, thousands. She replied her entire life. Every decision, every mistake, every regret. Searching for the moment where everything could have been different. But this is where the tragedy becomes deeper. The tragedy was not only that she lost her husband or that she lost her son. The tragedy was that she spent decades believing she could somehow undo either loss by replaying them in her mind. She was serving a life sentence in a prison built from memory, guilt, and imagination. And perhaps you know this prison too. Maybe your story is different. Maybe your loss happened in a hospital or on a telephone call or in the middle of an ordinary day that suddenly became the day everything changed. But the questions sound the same. What if I had known? What if I had stayed? What if I had done more? Different stories, the same prison. And the saddest part was this: the prison door had never been locked. The past was gone. The trial was over. The sentence had already been served. But every morning, she walked back into the cell and closed the door behind her. Not because she wanted it to suffer, because she believed suffering was the price of love. If I stop suffering, maybe it means I didn't love them enough. If I stop replaying it, maybe I am forgetting. If I stop punishing myself, maybe I am letting them go. But suffering is not the price of love. Love does not ask us to destroy ourselves in its name. Yet, many grieving hearts, spending years believing that if they stop hurting, they are somehow betraying the person they lost. The Buddha taught that suffering often comes in two forms. The first is unavoidable. The second is optional. He described it through the image of two arrows. When struck by an arrow, we feel pain. That is the first arrow. But then we may pick up another arrow and strike ourselves again and again. That is the second arrow. Loss is the first arrow. Death is the first arrow. Separation is the first arrow. Heartbreak is the first arrow. The endless replaying it, the self-blame, the mental punishment, the what if. These are the second arrow. The woman's suffering was not only coming from what happened, it was coming from trying to undo what happened. The Buddha taught that the second arrow comes from refusing to accept what has already happened when we fight with reality. No amount of wishing can change yesterday. No amount of replaying can create another ending. Reality remains exactly as it is. Acceptance begins with a simple, heartbreaking truth. This happened. I wish with all my heart that it had not happened. But it happened. And it is real. That is acceptance, not surrender, not defeat, but the courage to face reality as it is. People arrive, people leave, moments appear, moments disappear. This is difficult for the heart to accept because the heart longs for permanence in a world built on change. Everything we love changes. Everything we hold eventually slips through our fingers. This is not a punishment. This is the nature of life itself. Whatever it's born will one day die. Whatever it's gathered will one day disperse. Whatever it's built will one day fall apart. Whatever begins will one day end. The Buddha taught that impermanence is not a mistake in life. It is the nature of life. The seasons change. Spring becomes summer. Summer becomes autumn. Autumn becomes winter. The flower blooms. Then it faded. The morning arrives. Then it becomes night. The child becomes an adult. The adult becomes old. Nothing stands still. And yet, when someone we love dies, the heart cries out, not this, not now, not them. But suffering arises when we ask life to give us what it was never able to promise, that anything can remain forever. The Buddha did not teach impermanence to make us sad. He taught it to help us love more wisely, to cherish what is here while it is here, to say the word that need saying, to hold one another with gratitude instead of ownership, to understand that every moment together is a gift, not a guarantee. Because the truth is not that life is taking everything away from us. The truth is that nothing ever ours to keep. We are travelers, meeting one another for a little while. And perhaps acceptance begins when we stop demanding permanence from an impermanence world. When we stop saying, this should not change, and begin saying, thank you for being here while you were. Before we close today, I invite you to think about your own what if. Perhaps there is a question you have carried for months, perhaps for years, perhaps for decades, hoping for a different verdict. Ask yourself, what if the verdict has already been given? What if the person you lost would not want you serving a life sentence in their memory? What if love does not ask you to remain imprisoned? What if love is asking you to come home? Imagine for a moment that the person you miss most is sitting beside you. Imagine they can see everything. Every sleepless night, every replayed conversation, every ounce of guilt, every punishment you have carried in their name. And ask yourself, would they want this for you? Would they want you to spend the rest of your life standing in that courtroom? Would they want you to remain inside the prison? Or would they take your hand and gently say, enough. You have carried this long enough. What happened was real. Your love was real. But you do not need to keep punishing yourself for it. Come back to life. The door of the prison has always been open. The key has always been in your hand. The prison was built by the mind. Perhaps healing begins there, with the willingness to walk out of the cell you never realized was open. And today, for just one moment, you can take a step outside, not away from your connection, not away from your memories, but away from the suffering that comes from fighting what cannot be changed. And into that present moment, the only place where healing can happen, the only place where life still exists, the only place where your loved ones' love can continue to live through you. Perhaps that is where they have been waiting for you all along. Thank you.